Hi, I'm Alex, welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. In today's video we're talking about HITI again, but specifically around the announcement made before market opening today in relation to the Smoke Cartel acquisition being completed. The deal was announced in January and now it is officially closed, and as of today Smoke Cartel will be a part of HITI. Just before we go into the detail, it's important to remember that the financials which will be released on April 1st will not include the financial results of Smoke Cartel, only those of Meta Growth, so keep that in mind when you see those. In this video, we're going to discuss all of the key things which we, as investors, need to know about this transaction and the announcement. We'll look at why this is such an important strategic acquisition and how it is paving the way for the execution of a very differentiated strategy. If you're interested in HITI, then this is definitely not one you want to miss. I'm asking for a favour again in this video. Please can you smash the like button in our battle against the YouTube algorithm favouring clickbaity content. It's misleading and it's not good for the investing community on YouTube in the long run. By hitting that like button, you can do your bit for our cause. In the last 4 videos since I asked for this help, the response has been amazing. We're seeing the best like to view ratio ever on the channel, and the algorithm is now starting to share the videos with a more broad audience. Please keep it up, please keep liking the videos, and hopefully we can help the algorithm learn that genuine content is better than sensationalist, clickbaity content. Thank you so much. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to see more content, you want to join the private Discord and the private video calls, then check out the Patreon in the description below. And as always, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is purely for educational and entertainment purposes only, but let's get straight into it. So firstly, let's talk through the deal dynamics here. HITI paid $8 million for Smoke Cartel. $6 million of that was paid in HITI stock. I covered the maths on this in a previous video, so I won't bore you with that again, but at closing, on the basis of the volume weighted average price over the past 10 days, this equated to 9.5 million shares in HITI stock for Smoke Cartel. Now the deal was first announced in January, and at that point in time, based on the HITI stock price, Smoke Cartel would have received about 12.4 million shares in HITI. Ultimately, that meant nearly 3 million less shares in HITI were received by the Smoke Cartel shareholders. But during that period of time, there was no threat to the transaction completing because of this. This is a great indicator of the management team of Smoke Cartel's belief in the value of the business combination being greater than the sum of the two businesses independently. Additionally, the founder and CTO of Smoke Cartel, Sean Geng, is also taking up a senior role on the management team at HITI. He will serve as the CTO and oversee all global IT and e-commerce activities for HITI. In the 2 recent acquisitions we've seen, Meta Growth and Smoke Cartel, Raj Grover, the CEO, has retained some of the key talent within the companies which have been acquired. In doing this, he's building a highly experienced, capable and proven management team, and I really like to see this. Now the final point to mention here, and it's one which we've mentioned in our previous video which we did around the Smoke Cartel deal, is the valuation of this business. It's valued at around 6 times EBITDA. This is a remarkable feat. Average acquisition multiples across all sectors are way higher than this, and especially in vogue high growth sectors. Acquiring companies for low multiples like this is massively accretive for all shareholders on day one and creates significant shareholder value, and that's very impressive. Furthermore, you then have to factor in the synergy potential within these acquisitions, and you may then be looking at an effective acquisition multiple of much closer to 4 to 5 times EBITDA. How they do this and how replicable it is all comes onto their strategic approach to acquisitions. This is unique in the sector and it's very hard to replicate, which acts as a good barrier to entry. It's fundamentally the secret sauce of HITI, and so keep this in mind because we will address this shortly. So strategically, why is this a good deal and how does it create value for shareholders? Well, firstly, the acquisition now positions HITI with the 2 largest consumption accessory e-commerce businesses globally. This channel is now thoroughly commanded by HITI and is a big strategic move. A quick digression here, it's worth noting that consumption accessories are not subject to any impact on changing legalization status, so this ultimately meaning there's only upside potential here. Anyway, back to the point, it also brings greater presence within the US, enhancing HITI's international footprint and increasing its penetration into the US market. Quoting Raj here, they're 1 acquisition away from a physical brick and mortar presence in the US. Personally, I'm watching this space with close interest. This approach to the US market is also positioning HITI to effectively and profitably establish a presence in the market and to capitalise on any developments in the overall federal legalisation debate. The dropshipping technology and capabilities that the Smoke Cartel acquisition brings is also pretty interesting again. This is just another string added to HITI's bow, or for the American viewers, another arrow to its quiver. What's more, Smoke Cartel also brings access to an additional over 550,000 customers. These customers are a huge opportunity to drive additional sales and push other HITI products through to. These are products which may not have been available to them when just through Smoke Cartel itself. This also leads us quite nicely onto the strategy going forward, how this is differentiating HITID from the competitors and how it's creating a sustainable model for the continued execution of the same strategy. So, what's so unique about this strategy then? Well, firstly, it's best to think of this in terms of a matrix. You have the key routes to market or the distribution channels, those being your brick and mortar retail and your e-commerce primarily. Both of these HITID has a great market-leading global presence in. And the next dynamic of the matrix is the product offering. These range across the entire cannabis and CBD spectrum, from flower, extracts, derivatives, to accessories, paraphernalia, to CBD, CBD-related products. Basically, anything in that spectrum would sit within this matrix. The ideal strategy then is to fill out the matrix to provide every product across every route to market, creating a complete offering and a strong proposition. Now, taking a step back and thinking about the market, HITID commands a large market share of distribution channels, and for many years has been working with some of the key suppliers. Many of these suppliers provide small, specific, niche products, whatever that may be. They typically rely on HITID for their route to market to their customers. Through this, strong relationships are established, with HITID working with many of these companies for many years. This is where HITID's model is great, and it enables it to make such accretive acquisitions. Its customers see the clear value which a combination with HITID could bring in terms of greater sales and greater access. This is exactly how both the Metagrowth and the Smoke Cartel acquisitions were originated. Both of them beforehand were long-term customers of HITID, and the key shareholders ultimately realised the value of a combination. The strength of these relationships is what enabled the companies to be acquired at such low multiples, and what enabled the sellers to realise the value in the combined business and to take a large part of their payment for the business in the form of HITID stock. Currently, I'm sure there'll be many more of these similar conversations ongoing with various acquisition targets. HITID is in a unique position to cherry-pick the best acquisition opportunities, and I'm confident that we will continue to see a large number of great deals announced by the company. To add to this, HITID is also in a good position where it could acquire companies which are not yet profitable. It could then eliminate any duplicated costs and drive incremental sales by pushing all of it through the different routes to market which HITID commands. This in turn can make the product itself profitable and can drive greater margins for HITID as a group overall. Executing such a strategy then positions that acquired product or company very well in the market as well. They have a preferential route to market versus their competition. They also have a scale which makes it very hard for other companies in that same niche to be competitive. In short, there are two core pillars to the acquisition strategy which we'll see. Those focused around enhancing HITID's route to market in the distribution channels. This will create value for shareholders through pushing the existing products which HITID has through the new distribution channels, like the Smoke Cartel deal is. And the other part of the acquisition strategy will be focused on acquiring these specific niche products and driving them through the distribution network which HITID already commands. An example of this, say, could be a CBD-infused topical cream or a new vaporizer which could be sold through the existing channels. Ultimately, in due course, with changes to the legalization status globally, the brand strength could also be leveraged to sell cannabis and cannabis-related products through its e-commerce channels too. It's already doing some of this in Canada, but changes to the federal legalization status in the US would make this a very interesting opportunity indeed. The more execution of this strategy that HITID does, the harder it becomes for competitors to replicate this too. The differentiation and secret sauce of the company is truly underappreciated by the market at the moment, and this is really not reflected in its valuation today. HITID in effect can test out niche cannabis markets, capitalise on the fast-growing ones and the most profitable ones, and ensure that the business is aligned to those. Personally, I think this year for HITID is going to be characterised by a number of really interesting acquisition opportunities, so I'm really excited to see these play out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, and check out the Patreon link if you're interested in the Discord chat, video calls and other stuff. And as always, please let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I find it so interesting to hear all the different views and opinions, so please get involved. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.